at the top of the board, is there someone that your model liked more?
I was mostly from a betting perspective out on everybody sub 50 to 1. Like the lowest I went on the board would be Steven Yeager at 45 to 1 or Chris Kirk at 50 to 1. I like Russell Henley. I understand the intrigue around him. I kind of like Sung-Jae Im too. I just didn't want to get there at those prices that you had to pay. I don't have a problem with them, as I think they have win equity. I just don't know if they have the win equity that you would want at the price that you have to pay to get them.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I didn't either. I went on Boston Capper show last night and we talked about the top of the board. And it's like, you could maybe convince me with Siwoo. You could maybe, I started to get there a little bit further down at Lowry, which everyone knows I literally I hate Lowry. So the fact that I kind of like him this week is very surprising. I'm sure that I will regret that decision very much so at some point, but we can jump right into these. I'll get really weird with the first one, just right off the bat. Smash or pass. This is kind of a vibe check one. Like, I'm into this guy's vibe. I also think there's reasons to like him here, but smash or pass, Zac Blair. I'll do top 30 plus 320, but I don't hate the top 20 plus 650.
Blair, for me in my model, is one of those golfers that the ceiling increases, but the floor is very, very low. Yeah. So I almost prefer, I think a top 30 for that reason is better than a top 40, because if he flames out, he's going to flame out probably and miss the cut. We've seen that historically at this venue. Obviously, what he did at the 3M Open is encouraging. He also has a top result, a top 2 finish at the Travelers. I would just say he's a very boom or bust play. Take that for what it's worth, but inside the top 25 of my model for the category that I ran, that I titled pitch and putt. So that's essentially just proximity from 125 to 175 yards, plus the likelihood that they make the putt. It's a really nice number to be in the top 25 for a guy that, from an outright answer, he's over 250 to 1 at most shops. And there are decent numbers in the placement bet. But I think if you're backing him, you just have to know that the ceiling is fine, but the floor is very low.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing with him is he doesn't play consistently. He kind of kicks himself in the balls usually at like round 3, or if he even makes it to the weekends. He was about 22, I believe, in my model. So it's not that I'm in love with him here. I think he's in a solid spot once he makes it to the weekend, kind of about things that you already spoke about. But I think, you look at him, he has been gaining strokes in every category outside of off the tee in the last 14 rounds. His distance probably is a little bit to blame. And here you probably get, you can get away with not having that length there. So I think him being pretty accurate is probably why he fell where he did. Not that I put too much emphasis, like we spoke about earlier, but I think if he can marry that with, the consistent putting and approach play, obviously you can say this about anyone, but he's got to play 4 good rounds, because he'll get to the weekend, he'll have a bad round 3 and then finish strong. Can't do that here. So I'm in on him. There's a reason why he opened at 300 to 1 to win. He's not going to win this tournament, but I think he's a nice play for a placement bet.
Yeah, and he's accurate at these shorter venues too. And that's not an answer that you can give about every accurate golfer. Sometimes these club down venues for the accurate golfers actually become a problem for them because they lose some of their advantage. He has historically stayed within the top 30 of my model in accuracy at these shorter comp courses. The proximity numbers look really good. So he has intangibles that you could put together here that you would believe that he could find success. But it goes back to what you said. He's got to find a way to put it together for multiple days.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, what you got for me here?
I guess let's just keep with the theme this week, and everything can be as gross as possible.
Right.
And we've done a lot of shows together, Stephie, and I have mentioned this player's name one too many times to you, and he's never made a cut before, I don't think, when we've had this conversation, but I am going one last time down this road with him.
Oh, no.
Alex Norén, smash or pass?
Listen, I'm going to let you go down that road by yourself. I could probably get there with a placement bet. I think he did come in the top 30 in my model this week. So I think there is things to like. I can't do it again. He hurt me too much this season, but where are you at with him? Are you at an outright with him?
I'm with everything with him for the most part. So I took him at 80 to 1. I grabbed him as a top 40 at plus 160. I think that number's moved down to plus 130 or plus 135. So it shows that there's been credible movement to it past, just my wild ass trying to make Alex Norén bets every single week. I have him top 10 at 8-1. I think there's a lot to like about him. And it's kind of the argument that I've made for anything that I've done this week, where it's one thing when I recommended him at the Masters when he was 300-1 and he had this kind of like Zac Blair answer that we just talked about. The ceiling is high, but the floor is really low. If he misses the cut, there's not a shock to it. This is the first week that he actually graded as a player who had safety and upside in my model, which is what convinces me so much that there's upside to be had here, along with the safety of a top 40 bet. So my model thought, as crazy as this sounds, he should have been more of like a 35-40-1 golfer. A lot of that comes down to the 3 top 23 finishes that he has over his past 4 starts. So we see the form trending in the right direction. And then you get this statistical background from him where it's this high in nature of, I called it pitch and putt a second ago. It's that proximity from 125 to 175 plus the projected make percentage on the putts that you're having. There's an 8.2% increase in second shots from that 125 to 175 range. Yeah. Noren's the number 1 golfer for me in that pitch and putt answer that I put together. I think it's a really interesting answer to give for a golfer that you don't necessarily think of that finds success at these birdie venues. But I think that at birdie courses is actually where he finds his best success. He seems to struggle at some of these more difficult venues recently. He has a 90, let me get the exact number here so I don't butcher it, 97 spot increase in projected birdie rate increase here over what he would get on a generic course. So like that takes him from outside the top 100 inside the top 20 in my model and projected birdie rate. I just think that he has all the pieces, and kind of this club down nature helps a player like him. So I really like Alex Norén this week. I've said that a lot. I think this is a little bit different than some of these other courses, but I understand the trepidation from anybody.
If it's going to be a week, I feel like this is a good week for him for those reasons. Are you playing him in DFS too?
I am playing him across the board. I think he's one
Literally
of the better
all over. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's one of the better.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the better leverage plays probably for DFS just because he's sub 8% ownership in my model.
Okay. I'm actually going to give you a guy that you brought to my attention that's been kind of on my radar, but I didn't quite get there with betting him. Justin Lauer, top 40 plus 320. My model actually really liked him. I think that's probably coming from his putting. I think he's beautifully priced in DFS. I think he's 6.8, somewhere around there. He had a bad round 2 and 3 last weekend, I think, which can kind of be a trend for him. But again, he's, kind of like Blair, where if he does put it together, I think he's in a good spot. His putters and irons are coming in pretty solid form. And I think he was 36th in the one career start he did have. Last 6 starts, 2 missed cuts, but he also has a T25 and a top 10 in that. I think that this type of like short positional course actually suits him pretty well because he does. And this doesn't come as a shock, and this isn't like some crazy big brain thought, but he plays better at easier courses. So I think that it suits him really well. I'm kind of in on him. I will be a little bit crazier and do more than that top 40. I actually think that there might be even some value there on the top 20. So I'm in on him totally. And how are you feeling?
Yeah, Lauer was the last name that did not make my placement card. There was value in that number. Like over plus 300 is a really intriguing price. And as you said, he plays better historically at these easy scoring short venues. Right. He graded really well in my model. Like, I don't know if you told me where he was or what range he was in. He's 33rd for me overall. 27th for safety. Some of the upside numbers push him backwards, which is why I don't think he necessarily has win equity, but we don't need that for a top 40 bet. So I think he's an intriguing play. The iron proximity has been trending for the past 2 months now.
Right.
It's a good course fit for him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So I think he's he's already on my card. I definitely have him in a couple DFS lineups as well. Who is up next for you here?
Yeah, I'll just continue this trend of growth players and Ben Griffin. And it's kind of the very similar answer that I gave with Alex Norén, where I've played him across the board. He's in pretty much anything that we can talk about here. And I see Kelly in the chat right now. Like we're all in this FSGA league. I'm playing Ben Griffin and Alex Norén in my lineup this week. So those are kind of my 2 sleeper players where I'm going to take my shots on them. And I just think they're mispriced in a lot of ways. Like I have matchups, Norén. I have Norén over Shank, which I know Shank is a very popular person. And then I have Griffin over Sam Stevens. And then I have Griffin on a day one matchup over Austin Eckroat. So it's just going to be a lot of like matchups. And then obviously the top 40s and the top 10s that we have talked about.
Yeah, he will probably find a lot of success because it's going to be the one weekend I'm not putting anything more than maybe one of those matchups because those are kind of enticing hearing them out. He didn't rate out great for me, which I actually found somewhat surprising because he usually does rate out almost like too well for me at some point. Yeah. I think if I expand that out maybe a little bit more, he'll probably find himself creep back up. But I'm not out on it. It's just every time I bet him for some reason, he just stinks it up entirely. Same. I struggle with what to do with him, but there's a lot of guys entirely that like, they're all kind of like this in these deeper ranges. Like there's a reason why they're not the names, like household names that everyone knows. It's because it's not like they found tremendous tons of success on tour yet. So it comes to no surprise.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to give you the clickbait answer here. That is obviously the extreme route to go with this answer here. I think a lot of it stems from this being a weaker field. Every single player has some sort of an issue to them with the way that I built my model. This doesn't mean that these are the most likely players to win this tournament. When I ran this event for upside, all of a sudden Sung-Jae Im becomes number one in my model. And I saw a question about him earlier. I think he's an intriguing outright bet. Couldn't get there, but he was a name that I highly considered. But when I ran everything from course history, current form, the statistical data, Ben Griffin was number one in my model. And Stephie, you know, I don't have these outlier answers ever. Like it is so common for me to have just this be Sung-Jae, Hideki, Russell Henley. They're all up there, but Ben Griffin jumped everybody for me. And Alex Norén was number two. So part of that other reason would come down to is because I'm building such a course specific model. Yeah. This is a corollary courses that you can look at where it's top 12 historically in rollover predictability. Yeah. That's something that's obviously like you can look into, but when you start adding putting to the mix and you start adding some of these like specific weighted proximity distances that you're trying to find. So when I'm cutting it from 125 to 175 and I'm asking who's the best in the model and who's the most likely to make the putt, it's giving you these outlier answers to where, do I really believe Ben Griffin is the number one player in the field? No, but when you add everything to the mix, like it means something to me in these markets. And that's why I played him across the board.
Oh gosh, come on, Spencer. I thought I was going to get away with not betting him this week, but you're going to make me do that. Oh my God. All right. I'm moving on to the next one before I think too much about it. This is a guy that I've talked about routinely, has some weeks helped me break even because that, you know, some of these brutal weeks, I just continue to bet this guy. You know what? We're running it back with Chez Reavie, top 30 plus 230. Where are you at with Chez?
You have been right on Chez this entire season. I am not as high on him as you are, and I'll let you talk about him a little bit. I guess my one concern would just be the weighted putting that my model has on him on these fast Bermuda surfaces historically. And if you get rid of some of that putting from him, not that he's been amazing this season, like he's only 70th for me in my model, but you know, the weighted scoring that I have on these easy courses outside the top 100, the par 5 scoring, I know you only have 2 of them. You're going to have to score when you get them.
Right.
I don't know. To me, he's a fringe, you know, top 60 sort of golfer. So I didn't necessarily want to push him higher, but I'll let you talk to me about why you like them.
Yeah, I think I'm probably just riding this wave. I'm going to let it carry me as far as possible. I think that, you know, I've continued to place bets on him. He continues to do. He has 8 top 40s over the last 12 starts. Like he's playing solid golf. And I think, again, like not to be a dead horse, but short positional courses, don't hate that for Chez. He did, you know, his putting is definitely a big concern, but, you know, 2 top 10s here with arguably worse leading form. Gosh, I did not have coffee yet today. Worse leading form those 2 times. So I think that I can find myself there. Top 40 is probably a little bit safer, but I like the extra edge there with the top 30.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. He's been so good recently that I have to worry a little bit of how much of a duration of time that I put in my model. Like that's something I'm definitely cognizant of, just because some of these players I'm ever so slightly slow to move on. And I definitely was with Chez Reavie. I mean, that was something that we've talked about over and over again, where you jumped on him much quicker than I did. And by the time I got on, a lot of those prices kind of got moved away from where value was for me.
Yeah, 100%. I think we had a question too that I will pop on here before I get you out of here. Tybo, friend of the show, never been on the show, got to get him on the show, but can y'all convince me to pony up and bet Sung-Jae Im to win? Where are you at with Sung-Jae?
I think it's a good I think it's a good wager, and his number has drifted in the space. Like, he's one of those golfers, and we can name it about Adam Hadwin, we can name it about Chris Kirk, Sung-Jae. Some of the form's better than other players here, but you've had such inconsistent form from them, specifically Sung-Jae, where we haven't seen anything from him in months now, that there's a concern, and so nobody wants to put the outright ticket on him. I think there's 22s, 23 to 1s out there. I don't think that's a bad bet. Like, to me, he should be the favorite in this tournament. I think that's kind of the fair going rate for him. And as I said, I couldn't get there on an outright wager just with the way that I built my card. But the metrics and the course history and everything that you're looking for, like, he's inside the top 5 of my model in weighted scoring. He's number 1 there. Donald Ross courses, he's 3rd. On easy scoring courses that are similar to this one, he's 2nd. Number 1 in my model, as I said, for upside to actually win this contest. I'm willing to throw darts on Sung-Jae more than most people are. Like, I seem to be on Sung-Jae every single week. And this is the one week I've taken a step back, and maybe I'm going to regret it. But it was a lot easier for me to punch the ticket when he was 40 or 50 to 1 in some of these more difficult fields than the 22 to 1 that we have to pay here. But I don't have a problem with that. Biggie Smalls is the illest. Biggie Smalls is the illest. Biggie Smalls, Biggie Smalls, Biggie